How did two teachers turn their high school into a $2 million drug empire? Sell drugs to 73 students, then force them to become dealers and nearly get away with it all. Stay until the end, because you'll discover how Peder used chemistry class to cook fentanyl, Sharon turned the drama club into a recruitment center, and they almost escaped justice until one student's overdose exposed everything. This is the story of how Peder and Sharon Larsen transformed education into exploitation, trust into betrayal, and learning into a deadly business that would destroy dozens of young lives. Before we dive deep into this shocking case, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. Drop a comment and tell me what city you're watching from. I read every single one. Now let's get into one of the most disturbing true crime cases in education history. May 28, 2024, 2:47 p.m., Hialeah High School. 16-year-old Jason Martinez collapsed in the third-floor bathroom during the passing period. When paramedics arrived, they found him unconscious, barely breathing, his lips and fingernails blue from oxygen deprivation. This wasn't just any overdose. This was an honor roll student, varsity soccer team captain, college-bound senior who had just ingested pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl, so pure it nearly killed him instantly. The ambulance ride to Miami General Hospital took 12 minutes. Jason's heart stopped twice during transport. EMT crews administered 3 doses of Narcan before getting a stable pulse. His parents arrived at the emergency room to find their son on life support, machines breathing for him while doctors fought to save his life. Maria Martinez was a registered nurse. She understood exactly what the blood test results meant. The concentration of fentanyl in her son's system was astronomical. This wasn't street fentanyl cut with other substances. This was pharmaceutical-grade, laboratory-pure fentanyl manufactured by someone with serious chemistry expertise. The purity levels were so high that doctors initially suspected a suicide attempt. But Jason's parents knew better. Their son had college dreams, soccer scholarships, a bright future ahead of him. He wasn't suicidal. He was a victim. Carlos Martinez demanded answers from the school administration. How does a star student end up overdosing on pure fentanyl during school hours? Where did he get laboratory-grade drugs? The school's response was immediate damage control. They suggested Jason must have obtained the drugs off campus and called it an isolated incident. Maria Martinez wasn't satisfied with the deflection. 3 days after her son nearly died, she walked into the Miami-Dade Police Department and demanded a real investigation. She brought medical records showing the fentanyl's purity and a mother's absolute certainty that someone at that school had tried to kill her child. Detective Maria Santos, a 12-year narcotics veteran, reviewed Jason's medical records and knew immediately this wasn't a typical teenage drug case. The fentanyl concentration indicated access to pure pharmaceutical supplies and professional-grade manufacturing equipment. Someone with advanced chemistry knowledge had created this drug. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A teacher at Hialeah High School called the police tip line. The anonymous caller had noticed unusual after-hours activities in the school's chemistry department. Strange smells from the lab late at night. Equipment missing from inventory. A colleague who seemed to have far more money than a teacher's salary would provide. The tipster mentioned 2 names, Peder Larsen, the chemistry teacher, and Sharon Larsen, his wife who taught English literature and ran the drama club. They couldn't provide concrete evidence, but they had suspicions that something wasn't right about the couple's activities. What investigators would discover next would expose the most sophisticated drug operation ever found inside an American school. Detective Santos ran background checks on both teachers. Clean records, excellent performance evaluations, community involvement, award-winning educators with stellar reputations. On paper, they looked like model citizens and dedicated professionals. Detective Santos knew the most dangerous criminals often hide behind respectable facades. She contacted DEA agents specializing in drug manufacturing operations. Within 48 hours, the DEA had assigned Agent Sarah Chen to go undercover at Hialeah High School. Her mission, determine whether 2 trusted teachers were manufacturing and distributing drugs to their own students. Agent Chen was 28, but looked young enough to pass for a high school student. She had worked undercover in gang territories and cartel organizations, but infiltrating a high school drug operation run by teachers presented unique challenges. Chen enrolled as a transfer student with fabricated records and a backstory about her family moving to Miami. Her cover, a slightly troubled teenager who might be vulnerable to recruitment by drug dealers. Her first week revealed nothing suspicious. Peder Larsen taught chemistry with enthusiasm. Sharon Larsen ran drama club rehearsals with energy. Both appeared to be dedicated educators who cared about their students. But Chen noticed subtle signs. Certain students had special access to the teachers. Some kids had more money than their background suggested. Whispered conversations stopped when adults approached. The breakthrough came when Chen expressed interest in joining drama club. Sharon welcomed her enthusiastically and immediately began the grooming process that had ensnared dozens of victims. Sharon positioned herself as the understanding adult. She asked about Chen's family situation, financial needs, academic struggles. She offered help with grades and college applications. Within days, Sharon had identified Chen as a potential recruit. The approach was masterfully subtle. Sharon mentioned students who helped with special projects that paid well. She talked about opportunities for mature kids who could handle adult responsibilities. She created an atmosphere of exclusivity around these undefined opportunities. Chen played her role perfectly, expressing interest in money and academic frustration. Sharon's response confirmed investigators' suspicions. The drama club was a front for recruiting student drug dealers. Sharon never explicitly mentioned drugs. Instead, she talked about helping students who needed medication for studying. She described academic pressures requiring chemical assistance. She framed drug dealing as helping fellow students cope with stress. By her third week undercover, Chen was offered opportunities to purchase Adderall for studying. Transactions occurred during drama club rehearsals, with Sharon using Shakespeare quotes as code words for different substances. When Sharon determined Chen was trustworthy enough for bigger opportunities, she arranged for the undercover agent to visit Peder's chemistry lab after school hours. What Chen found there would form the foundation of the federal case that would ultimately bring down both teachers and expose their systematic exploitation of dozens of students. Peder's chemistry lab had been converted into a drug manufacturing facility that rivaled professional operations. Using equipment ostensibly purchased for educational purposes, he was producing methamphetamine, MDMA, and fentanyl at purity levels that exceeded street drugs by enormous margins. Chen watched as Peder demonstrated his manufacturing process to student assistants, teaching them not just how to make drugs, but how to test purity, products, and calculate dosages. He treated drug manufacturing like any other chemistry lesson, complete with safety protocols and quality control measures. The students helping with manufacturing weren't hardened criminals. They were honor roll kids who had been gradually recruited through academic pressure, financial incentives, and psychological manipulation. Some were there to work off drug debts. Others had been threatened with academic consequences if they didn't cooperate. All had been systematically exploited by adults they trusted. Over the following weeks, Chen documented the full scope of the operation. She recorded drug transactions, manufacturing processes, and the systematic recruitment and exploitation of student victims. She gathered evidence of threats, coercion, and manipulation used to control students who wanted to leave the operation. The evidence she collected would ultimately lead to federal charges against both teachers and provide crucial testimony for the dozens of students who had been victimized by their systematic abuse of trust and authority. But even as Chen gathered evidence for prosecution, the Larsen operation continued to expand and claim new victims. The investigation was a race against time to stop two predators who were destroying young lives while hiding behind the facade of educational excellence. On paper, Peder and Sharon Larsen were everything a school district could want in teachers. Their personnel files read like textbook examples of educational excellence and community commitment. Peder Andre Larsen had been teaching chemistry at Hialeah High for 15 years. He held a master's degree in organic chemistry from the University of Miami and had consistently received outstanding performance evaluations. His students regularly scored above district averages on standardized tests. He volunteered for science fairs, coached academic decathlon teams, and had been named Miami-Dade County Teacher of the Year in 2023. Sharon Larsen taught English literature and had run the school's drama program for 12 years. She was known as the teacher who could reach difficult students, the adult who really listened, the mentor who helped kids discover their potential. Her drama productions won regional competitions. Her students frequently earned college scholarships. Parents requested their children be placed in her classes. The couple lived in a modest home in Hialeah Gardens with their two teenage children. They attended parent-teacher conferences, served on school committees, and participated in community events. Neighbors described them as friendly and helpful. Colleagues considered them dedicated professionals. But this respectable facade concealed a criminal partnership built on complementary skills that made them uniquely dangerous to the students in their care. Peder's chemistry expertise gave him the technical knowledge to manufacture drugs that were purer and more potent than anything available on the street. His understanding of chemical processes, laboratory equipment, and safety protocols allowed him to produce pharmaceutical-grade narcotics using school facilities and supplies. Sharon's understanding of adolescent psychology made her a master manipulator who could identify vulnerable students and exploit their trust with devastating effectiveness. Her position as the popular teacher gave her access to teenagers' personal problems, family situations, and emotional vulnerabilities. Together, they had created a criminal operation that was perfectly designed to exploit the school environment and the students within it. They understood how to use grades as weapons, trust as currency, and authority as a tool for coercion. The investigation would later reveal that their criminal partnership had been years in the making. Financial records showed they had been planning and preparing for large-scale drug manufacturing since 2023. Equipment purchases, facility modifications, and network development had all been carefully orchestrated over time. They had studied their student population like a market research project, identifying the most vulnerable targets and the most effective recruitment strategies. They had developed sophisticated systems for money laundering, product distribution, and evidence concealment. Most chillingly, they had created detailed profiles of potential victims, documenting each student's psychological vulnerabilities, family situations, and susceptibility to different forms of manipulation and coercion. Sharon's personal journals, discovered during the investigation, revealed the calculated nature of their crimes. She had written detailed analyses of student personalities, describing how to exploit their need for approval, their fear of academic failure, and their desire to belong to something special. One journal entry from March 2024 demonstrated her predatory mindset. The key to controlling these kids is making them feel chosen. They're so desperate for adult approval and special attention that they'll do almost anything to maintain that status. Once they're involved, shame and fear keep them trapped. Another entry showed her complete lack of empathy for her victims. Some of these students are so damaged already that we're probably doing them a favor by giving them something to focus on. At least dealing drugs teaches them business skills. The journals revealed that the Larsens viewed their students not as young people deserving protection and guidance, but as resources to be exploited for profit and personal gratification. They had systematically studied how to weaponize the trust inherent in teacher-student relationships. Their criminal operation wasn't the result of desperation or poor judgment. It was the product of careful planning, systematic exploitation, and calculated abuse of the most vulnerable population in their care. By April 2024, the Larsens had transformed every aspect of their educational roles into components of their criminal enterprise. What appeared to be normal teaching activities were actually sophisticated recruitment and distribution operations. Peder's chemistry classes became screening opportunities where he could identify students with personal problems, financial needs, or risk-taking tendencies. His after-school tutoring sessions were actually recruitment meetings where vulnerable students were gradually introduced to the drug operation. The conversion of storage areas adjacent to his lab into manufacturing facilities was accomplished over several months using school purchase orders for legitimate educational equipment. Beakers, burners, scales, and chemical supplies were all obtained through official channels and then diverted to drug production. Peder's expertise allowed him to produce drugs that were far superior to street alternatives. His methamphetamine was over 90% pure. His fentanyl was pharmaceutical grade. His MDMA contained no dangerous adulterants. Students weren't just buying drugs. They were buying premium products that created stronger dependencies and generated more repeat customers. Sharon's drama club provided perfect cover for distribution activities. Rehearsals created opportunities for private conversations with student dealers. Script readings provided code words for different products. Costume fittings allowed for discrete product transfers. The creative, collaborative atmosphere of theater made students feel like they were part of something special and exclusive. Her English classes became psychological profiling sessions where she could assess students' vulnerabilities and recruitment potential. Creative writing assignments revealed family problems, personal struggles, and emotional needs that could be exploited. Literature discussions about rebellion and nonconformity were used to normalize rule-breaking behavior. The couple had developed an elaborate system of academic manipulation to control their growing network of student victims. Grades became currency that could be earned through participation in drug activities. College recommendation letters were promised to students who proved their loyalty through dealing. Academic opportunities were offered as rewards for successful recruitment of new customers. Students who cooperated found their grades mysteriously improving. Those who resisted or threatened to expose the operation saw their academic standing decline rapidly. The Larsens had weaponized the very foundation of educational achievement to ensure compliance with their criminal demands. By May 2024, their operation included 47 regular student customers and 12 active dealers who were distributing drugs at 6 different schools throughout the Miami-Dade system. Weekly revenue averaged $35,000, with peak weeks generating over $50,000 in sales. The network operated with military-like efficiency and discipline. Student dealers had assigned territories, sales quotas, and detailed protocols for handling transactions, customer complaints, and law enforcement encounters. The Larsens had created comprehensive training programs that taught students not just how to sell drugs, but how to avoid detection, handle difficult customers, and manage their own addiction problems. Financial records discovered during the investigation showed that the couple had generated over $2 million in revenue during 8 months of operation. They had established multiple bank accounts, complex money laundering schemes, and were actively exploring opportunities to expand their manufacturing capabilities. But the financial success was secondary to the psychological satisfaction they derived from controlling and manipulating their student victims. Sharon's journals revealed that she particularly enjoyed the power dynamics involved in corrupting students who had previously been model citizens. The investigation would ultimately show that the Larsens had created not just a drug operation, but a systematic program of child exploitation that used every aspect of the educational environment as a tool for criminal activity and personal gratification. What investigators discovered during their undercover operation was far more disturbing than simple drug dealing. The Larsens had created a comprehensive system of psychological and academic manipulation that trapped students in cycles of dependency, fear, and exploitation. The recruitment process began with identification of vulnerable targets. Students experiencing family problems, financial stress, academic struggles, or social isolation were systematically evaluated for recruitment potential. The Larsens maintained detailed files on potential victims, documenting their vulnerabilities and developing individualized approaches for each target. Initial contact was always subtle and seemingly benevolent. Sharon would offer academic help to struggling students. Peder would provide extra laboratory opportunities for kids interested in chemistry. Both teachers positioned themselves as understanding adults who recognized special potential in their chosen targets. The process appeared to unfold slowly, using methods that blurred the line between mentorship and manipulation. Certain students were singled out for special attention, given privileges and access that set them apart from others, and made to feel uniquely valued. In time, these close relationships and heightened trust would be leveraged in ways investigators later described as deeply inappropriate and potentially unlawful. Financial recruitment began with small opportunities to earn money through seemingly legitimate activities. Students were paid to help with laboratory cleanup, assist with drama club equipment, or provide tutoring to younger students. These initial payments established financial relationships that could be gradually expanded into more problematic activities. Academic manipulation was perhaps the most insidious aspect of their control system. The Larsens used their authority over grades, recommendations, and academic opportunities to create dependencies that went far beyond financial considerations. Students became terrified of losing academic standing, college opportunities, or the special treatment they received from their favorite teachers. Substance dependency was deliberately fostered through the provision of drugs that were purer and more addictive than street alternatives. Students who began as customers for study aids like Adderall were gradually introduced to more potent substances that created stronger chemical dependencies. Social isolation was encouraged through the creation of an exclusive in-group of students who were part of the operation. These students were made to feel superior to their uninvolved peers and were discouraged from maintaining friendships outside the network. This isolation made them more dependent on the approval and support they received from the Larsens. Threats and intimidation were used to maintain control over students who showed signs of wanting to leave the operation. Academic consequences, exposure to parents, and even physical threats were employed to ensure continued participation. Students were made to understand that leaving the network would result in serious personal and academic consequences. Documentation and leverage were systematically maintained on all participants. The Larsens kept detailed records of each student's involvement, including photographs, transaction records, and signed statements that could be used for blackmail purposes. Students knew that any attempt to expose the operation would result in their own criminal liability. The psychological impact of this systematic manipulation was devastating. Students who had once been confident and academically successful became anxious, secretive, and dependent on their teachers' approval. Many developed substance abuse problems that extended far beyond their involvement in the dealing network. The investigation revealed that some students had attempted to leave the operation, but had been pulled back through threats of academic sabotage, parental notification, or criminal charges. The Larsens had created a system where escape seemed impossible, and compliance was the only option for maintaining any hope of future success. This comprehensive control system allowed the couple to maintain discipline within their criminal organization while ensuring that victims remained silent about their exploitation. It was a masterclass in psychological manipulation that used every aspect of the educational environment as a tool for coercion and control. The investigation reached a critical phase in late May 2024, when Agent Chen witnessed activities that demonstrated the full scope of the Larsens' criminal operation and their complete disregard for student safety. During her final undercover purchase, Chen was present when Peder Larsen was training a group of student assistants in advanced drug manufacturing techniques. The session took place after school hours in the chemistry lab, with 6 honor roll students learning how to produce pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl using school equipment. Peder treated the manufacturing lesson like any other chemistry class, complete with safety protocols, quality testing procedures, and detailed notes on molecular structures and reaction processes. He explained how different chemical combinations could increase potency, extend shelf life, and reduce production costs. Chen watched as these teenagers carefully measured chemicals that could kill dozens of people if mishandled. She saw them package products that would be sold to younger students throughout the district. She witnessed the complete corruption of the educational process as chemistry lessons were perverted into instruction in manufacturing poison. Sharon's involvement in the manufacturing operation became clear during this session. She arrived near the end to review production numbers, discuss distribution schedules, and provide updates on customer demand from her network of student dealers. Her interaction with the manufacturing team was professional and businesslike, treating drug production as a legitimate enterprise worthy of quality control and customer service considerations. The couple's complete lack of concern for student safety became apparent when one of the young assistants accidentally spilled a small amount of pure fentanyl powder. Instead of implementing proper safety protocols, Peder simply instructed the student to clean up the spill with a paper towel and continue working. The casual handling of substances that could kill with minimal exposure demonstrated their reckless disregard for the lives of the children in their care. Agent Chen's hidden recording equipment captured the entire session, providing prosecutors with damning evidence of the systematic involvement of multiple students in drug manufacturing, the use of school facilities for criminal purposes, and the complete corruption of the educational process. But the investigation was running out of time. Intelligence indicated that the Larsens were planning to expand their operation to additional schools during the summer break. They had identified potential teacher recruits at other schools and were developing plans to establish satellite manufacturing facilities throughout the district. The decision was made to move forward with arrests before the operation could expand further and claim additional victims. Federal prosecutors had sufficient evidence to charge both teachers with multiple felonies and to demonstrate the systematic nature of their exploitation of students. The final phase of the investigation involved coordination between federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to ensure that all aspects of the operation could be shut down simultaneously. Search warrants were prepared for the school, the Larsens' home, and several locations where evidence might be stored. On the morning of June 3, 2024, Operation Clean Slate would bring the Larsens' criminal empire to an end and begin the long process of justice for their dozens of victims. Operation Clean Slate commenced at exactly 6:17 a.m. on June 3, 2024. 73 federal agents, supported by local police and school security personnel, executed simultaneous search warrants at Hialeah High School, the Larsen family residence, and 3 storage facilities where evidence of the drug operation was suspected to be hidden. The raid on the school was conducted with precision and overwhelming force. DEA agents in tactical gear secured the chemistry lab, administrative offices, and storage areas, while uniformed officers controlled access to the building and managed the growing crowd of students, parents, and media representatives. The search of Peder's chemistry lab revealed the full scope of the manufacturing operation. Hidden behind false walls and disguised as legitimate educational equipment was a complete drug production facility worth over $200,000. Industrial-grade scales, professional mixing equipment, and chemical storage systems had been integrated into the school's infrastructure over several months. Agents discovered over 40 different chemicals used in drug manufacturing, many of which had been purchased through official school requisitions and diverted to criminal use. The sophistication of the operation impressed even veteran narcotics investigators who had seen professional cartel laboratories. In Sharon's classroom, investigators uncovered a troubling collection of materials. Inside her desk were meticulous notes that appeared to track certain interactions and exchanges, alongside files containing personal details about several students. Financial papers hinted at substantial sums moving through unaccounted channels. Even her private journals seemed to outline a pattern of behavior that prosecutors argued pointed to deliberate misconduct and exploitation. The evidence recovered included $47,000 in cash hidden throughout school facilities, 1.4 kilograms of pure methamphetamine, 125 grams of cocaine, 67 grams of heroin, 168 grams of pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl, hundreds of prescription pills, complete manufacturing equipment and supplies, detailed customer and dealer lists, financial records documenting over $2 million in revenue, communication records showing systematic recruitment and coercion of students. But perhaps the most damning evidence was the collection of student essays and creative writing assignments that Sharon had used to identify vulnerable targets for recruitment. These documents revealed how she had systematically violated student privacy and exploited their personal struggles for criminal purposes. The arrests of Peder and Sharon Larsen were conducted without incident at their home. Both teachers were taken into custody as their teenage children watched in shock and confusion. The couple's facade of respectability crumbled instantly as neighbors witnessed the reality of their criminal activities. Federal marshals also executed arrest warrants for 3 adult accomplices who had helped the couple launder money and distribute drugs outside the school system. The coordinated arrests demonstrated the full scope of the criminal network that had grown around the Larsens' operation. The reaction at Hialeah High School was immediate and intense. Students arriving for summer classes were met with crime scene tape, federal agents, and the surreal sight of their teachers being led away in handcuffs. Many students broke down crying as they realized the extent of the betrayal by adults they had trusted. Parents began arriving at the school demanding information about their children's involvement and safety. The administration struggled to manage the crisis while cooperating with federal investigators who needed to interview potential victims and witnesses. Media coverage was extensive and immediate. News helicopters circled the school while reporters interviewed shocked students, parents, and community members. The story of teachers running a drug operation from their classrooms captured national attention and sparked conversations about school safety and educator oversight. The immediate aftermath of the raids created chaos within the Miami-Dade school system. District officials canceled summer programs at Hialeah High while conducting their own investigation. Other schools were placed on heightened security as officials worried about copycat operations or associated criminal activity. For the 73 students who had been victimized by the Larsens' operation, the raids marked the beginning of a long and difficult process of recovery, legal proceedings, and rebuilding their lives after systematic exploitation by trusted adults. In the days after the arrests, a fuller account began to take shape of what authorities described as a calculated pattern of misconduct involving students. Federal investigators spoke with numerous teenagers who, according to official statements, had various roles in the operation, some as purchasers, others as intermediaries, and a few allegedly assisting in production. The stories that emerged painted a disturbing portrait of calculated manipulation and exploitation that went far beyond simple drug dealing. Students described how they had been gradually recruited through academic pressure, financial incentives, and psychological manipulation that exploited their trust in adult authority figures. Maria Santos, a 17-year-old honor student, described her recruitment process in testimony that would later be used in federal court. She had been struggling with anxiety about college applications when Sharon Larsen offered her Adderall to help with studying. The initial transaction seemed harmless, even helpful, but Sharon had gradually increased the pressure, suggesting that Maria could help other students who were struggling with similar problems. When Maria expressed reluctance to become a dealer, Sharon threatened to inform college admissions offices about her drug use and to fail her in English class, destroying her academic record and college prospects. Maria ultimately recruited 12 other students as customers before being caught in the federal investigation. She described the constant fear of exposure, the stress of managing drug transactions while maintaining academic performance, and the shame of betraying friends who trusted her judgment. David Kim, a 16-year-old with dreams of attending medical school, had been recruited through Peder's chemistry program. Initially offered opportunities to earn money through legitimate laboratory assistance, David had gradually been drawn into drug manufacturing activities that he was told were educational experiments. When David realized he was helping produce dangerous drugs that were being sold to other students, he attempted to leave the operation. Peder threatened to destroy his academic record, inform his parents about his involvement, and ensure that no college would accept him. David felt trapped between criminal activity and academic destruction. Anonymous testimony from multiple students revealed the psychological trauma inflicted by adults who had systematically betrayed their trust. Many described feeling confused and ashamed about their involvement, unsure whether they were victims or criminals, grateful for academic advantages while horrified by the means used to obtain them. The investigation identified several distinct categories of student involvement. Manufacturing assistants were primarily honor roll students who had been recruited through advanced chemistry classes. These students helped produce drugs using school equipment and were taught sophisticated manufacturing techniques as if they were legitimate educational activities. Dealers were typically students with financial needs or social vulnerabilities who had been gradually recruited to sell drugs to peers. These students operated throughout the Miami-Dade school system, creating a distribution network that reached thousands of potential customers. Customers included a wide range of students who had purchased drugs for various reasons, from academic performance enhancement to recreational use. Many had been specifically targeted based on psychological profiles developed by the Larsens. Recruiters were students who had been incentivized to identify and approach potential new victims. These students received academic and financial benefits for expanding the operation's reach into new demographics and schools. The systematic nature of the exploitation became clear as investigators mapped the full scope of student involvement. The Larsens had created detailed organizational charts, assigned specific roles and responsibilities, and implemented performance metrics that treated child exploitation like a legitimate business enterprise. Medical evaluations of student victims revealed widespread substance abuse problems, psychological trauma, and academic disruption. Many students required immediate intervention for drug dependency, anxiety disorders, and depression related to their exploitation. The federal case against Peder and Sharon Larsen was built on overwhelming evidence and devastating victim testimony. U.S. Attorney Patricia Rodriguez assembled a prosecution team that specialized in organized crime and child exploitation cases to handle the complex legal issues involved. The charges against both defendants reflected the systematic and sophisticated nature of their criminal operation. Peder Larsen faced 37 federal charges including conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, manufacturing narcotics using federal facilities, distribution of drugs to minors, operating a continuing criminal enterprise, money laundering, corruption of minors, child endangerment, conspiracy to commit racketeering. Sharon Larsen was charged with 29 federal counts including conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, distribution of drugs to minors, corruption of minors, child abuse and neglect, operating a criminal enterprise, money laundering, conspiracy to commit racketeering, abuse of position of trust. The prosecution strategy focused on demonstrating the systematic nature of the exploitation and the defendants' abuse of their positions as trusted educators. Federal prosecutors presented evidence showing that the couple had not made impulsive poor decisions, but had carefully planned and executed a sophisticated criminal operation over many months. Financial evidence revealed the enormous scope of the operation. Bank records, cash seizures, and asset evaluations showed that the couple had generated over $2.1 million in revenue during 8 months of operation. Money laundering charges were supported by evidence of complex financial schemes designed to hide the source of their criminal profits. The manufacturing charges against Peder were supported by extensive physical evidence from the school laboratory, including equipment, chemicals, and finished products. Expert testimony from DEA chemists demonstrated that his operation was producing drugs at purity levels that exceeded professional cartel laboratories. On February 15, 2025, after 3 days of deliberation, the federal jury returned guilty verdicts on all charges against both Peder and Sharon Larsen. The courtroom was filled with victims' families, school officials, and media representatives as the verdicts were announced. The sentences imposed were among the harshest ever given to educators for crimes against students. Peder Andre Larsen was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole, plus $500,000 criminal fine, lifetime prohibition from employment in education, 10 years supervised probations following release, mandatory restitution to victim families totaling $847,000. Sharon Larsen received 18 years in federal prison, plus $300,000 criminal fine, lifetime prohibition from employment in education, 8 years supervised probation following release, mandatory participation in psychological treatment programs, restitution payments to victims totaling $623,000. Beyond the criminal penalties, both defendants faced additional consequences that would ensure their crimes continued to impact their lives long after their release from prison. The case of Peder and Sharon Larsen represents one of the most shocking betrayals of educational trust in American history. Two individuals who were entrusted with the education, safety, and welfare of children systematically exploited that trust to build a criminal empire that destroyed dozens of young lives. What do you think about this case? Should penalties for educators who exploit their students be even more severe? How can we better protect children in educational settings? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to tell me what city you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. If this story affected you as much as it did me, please give this video a like and subscribe for more true crime content. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep our children safe.